A grand jury has indicted former FBI Director James Comey. Here is the headline from this morning's Washington Post. Former FBI Director James Comey indicted amid Trump push to prosecute foes. Comey responded to the indictment on Instagram, saying, "Let's have a trial and keep the faith. My heart is broken for the Department of Justice, but I have great confidence in the federal judicial system, and I am innocent." Comey, you might remember, was fired back in 2017, 4 years into a 10-year term as FBI director. He was fired by Donald Trump after Comey disobeyed Trump's order to stop looking into Russiagate. The grand jury's indictment Thursday was brought forth by the brand new 36-year-old U.S. attorney for the Eastern District of Virginia, Lindsay Halligan, who was installed Monday after Sydney Sweeney, star of White Lotus, told the president, "Thanks for the offer, Mr. Trump, but I dropped out of UCLA to become an actress. I'm not really a lawyer." So Trump went with Lindsay Halligan, who we think went to law school. This after Trump forced out her predecessor, Eric Siebert. Eric Siebert said he found it impossible to bring charges against Comey for perjury. He also said bringing charges against New York Attorney General Letitia James for mortgage fraud was next to impossible. You might remember Letitia James won a judgment against Trump last year after a judge ruled that the failed New York real estate investor defrauded bankers and lenders by as much as $500 million. Trump is appealing that ruling. Trump pressured Siebert to bring perjury charges against Comey, reportedly based on Comey's testimony before the Senate Judiciary Committee back in 2020. Siebert said, there's no there. I can't indict him, so he was fired. The indictment was unsealed on Thursday. There's not much to read. I'm going to assume more will be seen at Comey's arraignment, which is scheduled for October 9th. But here is pretty much the entirety of the indictment. It says, on or about, this is count one, on or about September 30th, 2020, in the Eastern District of Virginia, the defendant, James Comey, did willfully and knowingly make a material, false, fictitious, and fraudulent statement in a matter within the jurisdiction of the legislative branch of the government of the United States by falsely stating to a U.S. senator during a Senate Judiciary Committee hearing that he, James Comey, had not authorized someone else at the FBI to be an anonymous source in news reports regarding an FBI investigation concerning person one. That person one would, of course, be Donald Trump. That statement was false because, as James Comey Jr. then and there knew, he in fact had authorized person three, I believe that would be McCabe, his deputy, to serve as an anonymous source in news reports regarding an FBI investigation concerning person one, who would be Donald Trump. Count two, on or about September 30th in the Eastern District of Virginia, the defendant, James Comey Jr., did corruptly endeavor to influence, obstruct, and impede the due and proper exercise of the power of inquiry under which an investigation was being had before the Senate Judiciary Committee by making false and misleading statements before that committee. This is garbage. This is why Siebert wouldn't bring it before the grand jury. It's pure garbage. So that testimony would have been 3 years. That would have been 2020. That testimony before the Senate would have been 3 years after Trump fired Comey. During that testimony, Comey reportedly said that while he was FBI director, he never ordered anyone in the agency to leak information anonymously about Trump attempting to obstruct justice in the Russiagate investigation. I'm going to walk you through this because I want you to see how stupid it is, and you're not supposed to be able to keep track because it's garbage. But let's go through this, and you'll see why I don't even think it goes to trial. So, as you can see, the grand jury's indictment looks thin. But what we believe is that prosecutors went before the grand jury and convinced them that Comey's former deputy, Andrew McCabe, reportedly told, now it's hard to follow, but it's worth following to show you how ridiculous this is, okay? So, the grand jury indicted Comey after they were convinced that perhaps Comey's former deputy at the FBI, Andrew McCabe, told the FBI's Inspector General in 2018, that would be 2 years before Comey is alleged to have perjured himself in 2020 before the Senate Judiciary Committee. 2 years previously, in 2018, that would be 1 year after Comey was fired, this would be 2018, Andrew McCabe, Comey's deputy at the FBI, told the FBI's Inspector General that Comey had in fact ordered an anonymous source within the FBI to leak information about Trump's attempts to slow the investigation into Russiagate. So if you look and read between the lines of that indictment, the indictment is basically saying Comey instructed McCabe to leak anonymously, and then while he was testifying under oath in 2020, Comey perjured himself by denying that he ever told McCabe to leak. Okay, so that's what is believed to be the perjury charge. And somehow they're also charging Comey with obstruction of Congress. This is a big story. It's Trump actively weaponizing the Justice Department to prosecute his perceived enemies. I know your eyes are glazing over, but I want you to understand the timeline here, because this is all about manufacturing chaos. Trump first took office in January of 2017. Comey, at that time, was already 4 years into his 10-year term as FBI director. FBI directors serve 10 years, but they can be fired by the president with cause. And Trump fired Comey in May of 2017, barely 5 months into Trump's first year in office. The cause? Comey wouldn't stop looking into Russiagate. You remember, Trump won in November of 2016. On December 29th, 2016, Barack Obama, with fewer than 3 weeks left in his presidency, sanctioned Russia, expelled 35 Russian diplomats, closed down 2 Russian offices near D.C. This was after Crossfire Hurricane, this investigation into the 2016 election. This was after Crossfire Hurricane, American intelligence agencies, along with James Comey, director of the FBI, concluded that Vladimir Putin interfered in the 2016 presidential election specifically to help Donald Trump defeat Hillary Clinton. Is that why Hillary lost? It's one of the reasons she lost. So by that time, December 29th, 2016, Trump had already announced General Michael Flynn would be serving as his new national security advisor once he's inaugurated. This despite Obama telling Trump that Flynn's not a good idea, that Flynn isn't all there. Obama said Flynn was erratic, to say the least, and lacked good management style. This is General Michael Flynn. There were also fears that Flynn could be subject to blackmail due to his questionable ties with Vladimir Putin, including Michael Flynn receiving a $45,000 check from Putin to deliver a speech in Moscow. While seated right next to Putin, you're looking at the two of them. That evening, it was celebrating RT, Russian television's 10th anniversary. And this all happened less than a year before Trump appointed Michael Flynn to serve as national security advisor. They felt, the Obama administration said, he's got questionable ties to Russia, which had just invaded Crimea. Plus, there was the $530,000 that General Michael Flynn was paid in 2016 to lobby on behalf of the government of Turkey, while at the same time failing to register as a foreign agent under the Foreign Agents Registration Act. You're supposed to do that. It's rarely enforced. Some of Flynn's associates, however, were convicted on that. Trump announced the appointment of Flynn anyway. Then, after Obama, in the final weeks of his presidency, announced economic sanctions on Russia for interfering in the 2016 presidential election, General Flynn, who was not yet our national security advisor, got on the phone with the Russian ambassador and told him, don't reciprocate. Tell Putin not to impose economic sanctions on the United States. Tell him not to throw our diplomats out of Moscow. Just stay put, because in a few weeks, Trump is going to be president and he will reverse Obama's sanctions. Now, that call from General Michael Flynn to the Russian ambassador is against the law. You can't represent the United States. You can't negotiate on behalf of the United States government until you're working for the United States government. General Flynn was not national security advisor yet, and I believe it's a violation of the Logan Act. You can't present yourself as an American official and start negotiating if you're not an American official yet. By the way, Trump never reversed those sanctions on Russia for interfering. Flynn broke the law. He ended up pleading guilty in 2017. He pled guilty to lying to FBI agents about his conversations with the Russian ambassador that he should not have been having because he wasn't yet the national security advisor. Okay, so he pled guilty in 2017. In 2020, Trump pardoned General Flynn. According to CNN, the New York Times, and the PBS, General Michael Flynn, in the immediate aftermath of Trump's loss to Joe Biden in 2020, after he was pardoned, General Flynn urged Trump to use his role as commander-in-chief and seize voting machines. There are reports that General Michael Flynn, who was retired from the military in 2020, nevertheless began soliciting members of the military to ask them to assist him in seizing the voting machines. This was the same year General Michael Flynn posted a video of himself reciting the QAnon oath, calling himself a digital soldier. A digital soldier is a term General Michael Flynn coined for followers of QAnon. During the Biden administration, General Michael Flynn launched the Reawaken America tour, which fuses white Christian nationalism with MAGA politics. During one of his speeches, General Flynn said, quote, "If we are going to have one nation under God, which we must, we have to have one religion." Yeah, which one religion do you think that's going to be? There is a terrific Frontline documentary about General Michael Flynn, how he enlists Americans to fight a holy war and be soldiers of Jesus, demanding that Christianity have supremacy over all other beliefs in the United States. Eric Trump speaks a lot at his Reawaken America events. That's General Michael Flynn, who didn't even last a month as Trump's national security advisor once it came out that Flynn lied to the FBI and Mike Pence about talking to the Russian ambassador. Pence went on the Sunday talk shows saying Flynn never talked to the Russian ambassador. And then when Pence found out that Flynn lied to him and the FBI, well, Michael Flynn barely lasted a month as national security advisor. He was out the door. Before he left, as the walls were closing in on General Michael Flynn, while Michael Flynn was still trying to hang on as national security advisor. That's when Trump tricked FBI Director James Comey into having a private dinner with Trump at the White House, where Trump demanded from Comey loyalty, and then Trump broke the law, obstructed justice, by asking the FBI director to go easy on General Michael Flynn. So Comey agreed to have that dinner with Trump, thinking there would be other people, witnesses. Comey would have never agreed to meet privately with Trump as FBI director, since that violated the Watergate era wall, or the post-Watergate era wall, between the Oval Office and the Justice Department. The President of the United States is really not allowed to talk or call the FBI director. It's happening all the time now with Trump back in the Oval Office. So immediately after that dinner, Comey wrote a memo to himself recalling the details of the conversation with Trump, where Trump said, go easy on Michael Flynn. That's obstruction of justice. Where, like a mob boss, that's how Comey described Trump, Trump demanded loyalty from the FBI director. After Trump fired Comey in May, specifically because Comey would not let up on the Russiagate investigation, Comey testified and wrote in his book that he set the wheels in motion to leak the contents of his memo, the one that he wrote to himself, so that a special counsel would be appointed to look into both Russiagate and Trump's obstruction of justice, Trump's flagrant attempts to block the FBI from looking into Russiagate. That special counsel was Robert Mueller, who, in his Mueller report, concluded Vladimir Putin did indeed interfere in the 2016 presidential election on behalf of Trump. And in part 2 of the Mueller report, Mueller outlines how the Justice Department could easily prosecute Trump for obstruction of justice in Russiagate. One of the major obstructions, Mueller pointed out, was Trump firing Comey after Comey refused to stop looking into Russiagate. That is, you couldn't be any clearer about obstruction of justice. Mueller wrote in the Mueller report he was not recommending any prosecution of Trump only because a memo from the Justice Department's Office of Legal Counsel, written in 1973, while Nixon was president, that memo stated it was official Justice Department policy, not law, but official Justice Department policy not to indict sitting presidents. So in the Mueller report, Mueller said, I'm not going to recommend indicting Trump because it's not our policy to indict sitting presidents. Trump and Bill Barr, his then Attorney General, spun this so low information voters and even lower information reporters began to believe the Mueller report cleared Trump of any wrongdoing, but it didn't. The Mueller report clearly stated Trump could easily be tried for obstruction of justice, but because it's official policy in the Justice Department not to indict sitting presidents, we, Robert Mueller, are not recommending an indictment. Trump wasn't cleared. He was never cleared. In fact, he was pretty much found guilty in the Mueller report. So remember, James Comey, FBI director, testified and wrote in his book that he himself leaked contents of that private memo Comey had written to himself. This was the memo recalling that dinner with Trump early in the first year of Trump's first administration, where Trump, during a private dinner, demanded loyalty from Comey and then asked the FBI director to drop an investigation into Trump's national security advisor, General Michael Flynn, who eventually was forced to resign after Flynn confessed to lying to FBI agents about his illegal negotiations with Russian diplomats before Trump took office, conversations that undermined then President Obama's foreign policy. After Trump fired Comey in May of 2017, just 4 months into Trump's presidency, Comey asked a friend, a professor at Columbia, to leak memos that Comey had written to himself, recalling Trump's attempt to obstruct justice. Why did he ask the professor to leak that? So a special counsel would be appointed to investigate efforts by Putin to get Trump elected in 2016, Russiagate, and to investigate Trump's efforts to obstruct that investigation, like firing Comey. You might recall, immediately after firing James Comey, Trump went on NBC News and was asked by Lester Holt, "Why did you fire our FBI director?" And Trump just said, because he wouldn't stop looking into Russiagate. This was 8 years ago, 2017. Obstruction of justice, right out in the open. So Comey isn't being prosecuted right now for leaking his private memo after he was fired. He isn't being prosecuted for telling the FBI to leak anonymously to the media while he was FBI director. Comey was indicted on Thursday for lying to Congress during Senate testimony 3 years after Trump fired him, testimony in which Comey denied telling his deputy, Andrew McCabe, over at the FBI to leak to the press about Russiagate anonymously. That deputy, and we have every reason to believe it's Andrew McCabe, we have to see the entire indictment, but we believe prosecutors will be making the case that McCabe told an inspector general in 2018 that Comey did in fact tell him to leak anonymously. And from what I'm hearing, that's all they got on Comey. That's their only proof of perjury. It's a garbage indictment 2 years after Andrew McCabe told the FBI's inspector general that Comey wanted him to leak anonymously. Comey testified, "I never ordered anyone to leak anonymously at the FBI." That's what they've got on Comey. See how stupid this is? Andrew McCabe, Comey's deputy at the FBI, tells the FBI's inspector general that Comey did tell him to leak, and from that discrepancy, where Comey 2 years later said, "I didn't tell him to leak," from that, this new prosecutor was able to secure a perjury indictment against Jim Comey. It's pure garbage. Comey testified in 2020, "I never ordered anyone in the FBI to leak." Andrew McCabe, 2 years before that testimony, told the FBI inspector general that Comey did tell him to leak. And from this, you get perjury? Really? So, can you follow any of this? Can you? Of course not. It's confusing. It's all about who remembers what, and it's so deep in the weeds. It's precisely why Eric Siebert, the U.S. Attorney for the Eastern District of Virginia, wouldn't bring the Comey case before a grand jury, so he was fired last week. On Monday, the new U.S. Attorney for the Eastern District of Virginia, Lindsay Halligan, who served on Trump's defense team last year and has no background as a prosecutor, she brought the case before a grand jury and got an indictment because, as the old saying goes, you can convince a grand jury to indict a ham sandwich. Can you get a jury to convict that ham sandwich? There is some reporting that Attorney General Pam Bondi, who actually has been a prosecutor, there are reports that she was reluctant to push ahead with this Comey indictment after being told by lawyers in the Justice Department that while it's easy to get the indictment, winning this perjury trial against Comey will be next to impossible. It's what they call weak sauce. Witnesses who testify are rarely indicted for lying before Congress. All three of Trump's picks for Supreme Court testified under oath during their confirmation hearings that they believed Roe was settled law. They were lying. We saw in 2022, all three of them lied under oath. Emil Bove served as acting deputy attorney general earlier this year. During confirmation hearings this summer, after he was nominated to serve as a United States Circuit Court judge, Bove testified under oath that he didn't order the indictment of New York City Mayor Adams to be dropped in exchange for Adams cooperating with ICE, even though two whistleblowers and several Justice Department officials who quit in protest over that quid pro quo said he did, in fact, drop the charges against Adams in exchange for Adams cooperating with ICE. Bove also testified under oath he never told Justice Department lawyers that in order to fulfill Trump's promise to conduct massive deportations, you're going to have to tell judges to go, quote unquote, F themselves. He didn't say F, he said the actual word. And he said you're going to have to ignore the orders from these judges. There were whistleblowers, people willing to testify that Bove perjured himself, but Chuck Grassley, the Republican chairman of the Senate Judiciary Committee overseeing those hearings, never gave them a chance to be heard. And now Bove is a circuit court judge, lifetime appointment. Committing perjury during Senate testimony is tough to prove. And I'm not sure, maybe I'm wrong, but the last person convicted of lying before Congress, I believe it was Michael Cohen, Trump's former attorney, who pled guilty to lying to Congress about Trump's plan to build a Trump Tower in Moscow. He pled guilty and went to prison. So I think he's the last person tried and convicted. Well, he pled guilty to perjury. In order to get a perjury conviction, you need to know that person's state of mind. Again, the text of this indictment that I read to you is incredibly slim, so we don't know the specifics, but it's going to be impossible to prove Comey knowingly lied to the Senate about ordering the FBI to leak anonymously material that would embarrass Trump, because he can say, I don't remember. There was so much going on. Or he could say, when I said that, I believed it at the time. Or Andrew McCabe, his deputy, who told the FBI Inspector General 2 years before Comey's testimony that Comey told him to leak, McCabe might retract his statement to the Inspector General, or the two of them will just say, you know, there was so much going on at the time, it's impossible to remember. This is why it's impossible to convict Comey. It's why someone who has never worked as a prosecutor, Lindsay Halligan, who moonlights as Christopher Moltisante's widow from The Sopranos, it's why she said, sure, I'll do it. What do I know? But this isn't about getting a conviction so much as just harassing James Comey, forcing him to rack up legal bills and giving him a taste of what Trump went through right up until Election Day last year. You might remember the Secret Service literally began tailing Jim Comey earlier this year after Comey posted on social media 86-47. 86, when I was growing up, 86 meant throwing somebody out of a bar. You got 86. Trump is the 47th president of the United States. 86-47, pretty anodyne, but MAGA world said that was a threat on Donald Trump, and Comey had to be called in for questioning. The Secret Service brought him in. And not only that, our Secret Service, as you know, woefully understaffed, they had to begin tailing him. They began following him. Your tax dollars at work. Do you think the Secret Service believed Comey was a threat to Donald Trump, a physical threat to Donald Trump? This was using the Secret Service to intimidate and harass Jim Comey. Over the weekend, you all saw Trump's memo to his attorney general in the form of a social media post. He demanded to know, where are the indictments of my enemies? This has never happened before in modern American history, where a president is openly ordering his attorney general to indict and prosecute his political enemies. He writes, Pam, I have reviewed over 30 statements and posts saying that essentially same old story as last time, all talk and no action. Nothing is being done. What about Comey, Adam Shifty Schiff, Letitia? They're all guilty as hell, but nothing is going to be done. And then he deleted it. But he said, we can't delay any longer. It's killing our reputation and credibility. You have no credibility. He goes, they impeached me twice and indicted me 5 times over nothing. Justice must be served now, signed President DJT. So what proof that Comey should be indicted? Because they impeached me twice and indicted me 5 times. Well, Trump is a moron. He wasn't indicted 5 times. It was 4 times. There's the Manhattan hush money trial, Alvin Bragg. He's a convicted felon, thanks to that one. There's the D.C. election interference case that, had he not been reelected, would be going on right now. There's the classified documents trial in Miami that I believe the Supreme Court would have forced him to go on trial for. There's the Georgia RICO trial, which Republicans in Georgia have succeeded in taking away from Fani Willis. That is probably going to die. It's going to be transferred to a prosecutor from a red Georgia district who's just going to drop the charges against Trump. So that's 4, not 5, Donald. The civil lawsuit filed by New York State Attorney General Letitia James, that is not an indictment, Donald. That's not number 5. You don't get indicted in civil court, you moron. The president should know this. He should know how many times he's been criminally indicted. It's 4 times, not 5. But when you're as prodigious a criminal as Donald Trump, I guess it's hard to keep count. So, Trump hates it when people say Vladimir Putin helped him get elected. This is why he's going after Comey. He hates anybody who suggests that Putin has something on Trump. And it really hasn't been until the past 3 or 4 days that Trump has started to actually pretend to break with Putin. He's never going to break with Putin. On Tuesday, however, Trump called Putin a paper tiger who can be defeated in Ukraine. On Tuesday, Donald Trump performed a complete 180, announcing at the UN right after his speech that after listening to world leaders, he's now concluding that Russia is a paper tiger and that Ukraine doesn't have to cede an inch of territory to end the nearly 3-year-old war, because Trump said now he believes Putin is going to lose. During Trump's speech, let me just show you. This is a video of Trump's speech before the UN. During his speech before the UN, maybe that's AI, he told European countries to stop buying Russian oil, which is a direct slap at Putin because, according to most reports, nearly half of Russia's federal budget is paid for by Russian exports of oil. You stop buying Russian oil, the war's over. On Thursday, Trump did backtrack a little, telling reporters, quote, "I'm not ever going to call anybody a paper tiger." Well, you just did yesterday, the day before. But he goes, "I'm not going to ever call anybody a paper tiger, but Russia has spent millions and millions of dollars on bombs and missiles, ammunitions, and their lives, and they've gained virtually no land. I think it's time to stop. I really do," unquote. During Tuesday's, I just want to look at this again. During Tuesday's speech before the UN General Assembly, Trump urged Europe to stop purchasing oil and gas from Russia. And as I just said, as much as 50% of Russia's federal budget comes from oil, exporting oil overseas. China and India are the two biggest buyers right now of Russian oil. Neither one is a member of NATO, but Turkey is a member of NATO, and Turkey is the third largest customer of Russian oil. The BBC reporting that Turkey's imports of Russian gas and oil rose by nearly 26% this year. This, while most NATO members dramatically reduce their dependence on Russian oil. Hungary and Slovakia, along with Turkey, are NATO's three largest consumers of Russian oil. Turkish President Tayyip Erdogan met with Trump in the Oval Office Thursday, where for the first time since he returned to the White House, Trump personally and publicly urged a NATO member to stop purchasing Russian oil. Trump told reporters during the meeting, quote, "I'd like to have him stop buying any oil from Russia while Russia continues this rampage against Ukraine." So if this keeps up, we're going to see something come out about Melania or Donald, right? Because Putin has a jacket, a very thick jacket of intelligence on Trump. And there's going to be something leaked in the press next week as a reminder to keep your mouth shut, Donald. During that meeting in the Oval Office Thursday with Turkey's leader, Trump said he thought it likely that sanctions would be lifted, sanctions that prevented Turkey from purchasing F-35 jet fighters manufactured here in the United States by Lockheed Martin. Turkey has not been allowed to buy F-35 jet fighters because during the final year of Trump's first administration in 2020, Congress passed an amendment that they attached to the Defense Authorization Act banning Turkey from purchasing F-35s from the United States after it was discovered that Erdogan was buying surface-to-air missiles from Putin. Well, Trump on Thursday told Erdogan he thinks that ban is about to be lifted and you really should stop buying Russian oil if you want that ban to definitely get lifted. Why does Turkey want F-35s? Well, as I mentioned on the last program, hardliners inside the Israeli war cabinet are urging Prime Minister Benjamin Netanyahu to launch airstrikes over Turkey to assassinate leaders of Hamas who are not only being given safe haven in Turkey, but celebrated by the Turkish leader Erdogan as freedom fighters. Erdogan has also compared Netanyahu to Hitler. Now, I doubt Netanyahu is going to attack Turkey because of Article 5 of NATO. Turkey's a member of NATO. If you attack a member of NATO, you attack all of NATO. Last November, Turkey and Israel severed diplomatic ties, shut down their respective embassies. At the beginning of this month, Turkey cut off all trade with Israel, and Turkey no longer allows Israeli airliners to use its airspace. Turkey has been a member of NATO since 1952. It's never joined the European Union. Because of Erdogan's close ties to Putin and Hamas, he has been instrumental in serving as a back channel for America to pass messages to these two adversaries. Erdogan, as recently as this month, met with Putin during the Shanghai Cooperation Organization summit in China. He urged Putin to bring an end to the fighting, but Putin thanked him for his efforts, but showed no interest in a ceasefire in Ukraine. That was the third meeting between Erdogan and Putin since May. Nicolas Sarkozy, who served as French president from 2007 to 2012, is heading to prison for 5 years after a Paris criminal court found him guilty of allowing top aides to fund his 2007 presidential campaign with money from then Libyan strongman Muammar Gaddafi. As of right now, it looks like Sarkozy will be forced to appeal that verdict while he's in jail, marking the first time a French president has ever been locked up. In December of last year, France's highest court upheld a previous conviction where Sarkozy had been found guilty of attempting to bribe a judge over an investigation into accusations that Sarkozy improperly solicited donations from France's wealthiest woman. He was ordered to wear an ankle bracelet. So he's going to prison. Imagine that, sending a former president to prison. Imagine that. And in the Philippines, as I said on the last show, their previous president, Duterte, was shipped off to The Hague, where he was indicted this week for crimes against humanity. Jair Bolsonaro, the former president of Brazil, was just sentenced to 27 years in prison for plotting to assassinate the current president after Bolsonaro lost his own re-election bid. The leader of Israel, the leader of South Korea, Pakistan, Georgia, to name just a few, these leaders have all been sent to prison in the past decade on charges of corruption and leaking state secrets. But tell me again how America is a nation of laws. I'm David Feldman, reminding you to stay strong and protect the weak. I think that might be AI. I don't know. I also have some photographs of Tom Homan on payday. Here he is walking. I think that's Tom. Yeah, that's Tom Homan in the red light district of Amsterdam. I don't know what he's carrying there. Here he is in Las Vegas. What's he doing here? About to go into the Diamond Club. I don't know why he's carrying a sack. Oh, this is Tom Homan in an adult bookstore. He's looking for his favorite Peep Show. He's lost. There it is. Family separations and caged women. That's his fetish at the Peep Show. What is going on here? What do we got here? Oh, it's the new ABC sitcom, Hi, Honey, I'm Homan. It's a new sitcom this fall. Oh, and this is Lindsey Graham trying to learn where babies come from. You can do it, Lindsey. Come on, Lindsey. No, he's not. It's hard for Lindsey to learn where babies come from. I'm sorry. I really am. Is that it? Yeah, I think that's it. All right. I'm David Feldman. Thank you to Bob and Mila in the chat room. Leave a comment. Let's count, Fartula. I issue corrections on this show, so if I made any mistakes, yes, it was a kava bag. It wasn't a plain brown paper bag that Tom Homan accepted the $50,000 in cash in, allegedly. Although he's not denying it, he's just saying it wasn't illegal. What else? Leave a comment. Please like this video so I remain in your feed. Please share it. I'm doing as many shows as I can without losing my sanity. This is Lindsey Graham being taught where babies come from. But he just can't learn it. Okay. Thank you, everybody.